All right. Good evening, everybody. I trust that you are well. So, the other time I was just looking at one of the recordings, and it's a bit weird because you talk of good evening when, in actual fact, maybe somebody would look at this thing at a different time. So, yeah, let me just welcome you to this presentation. And tonight we are throwing away the PowerPoints. We're doing Excel today. And we hope this will be also another nicely compressed presentation where we will deal with specifics. So just one disclaimer before we proceed. I just want you to know that I think we've got a wrong title for our presentation this evening. It's supposed to actually read competence requirements properly fitted. So I think because when we talk of fit and proper requirements, remember, we are broader, we talk of the 5 elements. But this evening, I'm just going to focus on the competence requirements and how they specifically apply to different categories. So one of the things that we find when you have to write the exam is that there are a number of requirements that apply to you, and these requirements will be category specific. So today we're focusing on the requirements for different individuals, role players, we specifically reps, KIs, and FSPs across all the categories from Cat 1 to Cat 4. So I'm going to start with qualifications. So here I show you that the different qualifications will apply differently to different role players. So these requirements will apply differently to different role players. So, for example, qualifications will apply to all categories. And that's why you can see on all categories here, your requirements apply everywhere. Okay, but that's an unsafe statement because the qualification requirement will not apply to certain category 1. So if I ask you a silly question and say, which categories have an exemption for qualifications? Maybe you should not be able to say Cat 2 or 2A, 3, or 4, because as you can see here, we've made everything red here, because there is no exemption for people in Cat 2, 2A, 3, or 4 for qualifications. And the same goes for Cat 1, except where we are dealing with KIs, reps, and FSPs. KIs, reps, and FSPs in long-term insurance A and friendly societies. Then for reps only who are doing execution of sales, there is an exemption also for a qualification. Now, because I'm speaking to people whom I believe have actually prepared or are almost going to write the exam, I want to emphasize here that regarding this, regarding the exemption of reps, okay, who are doing execution of sales, they are exempted from a qualification. But in your own reading, you should have seen that there is a requirement that these guys must actually have a grade 12 or equivalent. So maybe an NCAF 4 or a grade 12. But you also know, I think we're going to cover this briefly just now. You also know that when somebody has to work under execution of sales, suppose maybe under supervision, they will need a minimum of grade 10. But for them to qualify for the qualification exemption, they actually need to have grade 12 or equivalent. And there are also conditions that they must work under maybe a KI who must oversee that. They must use a script, they must be recording, there must be controls to ensure that these reps do not actually give advice in the process. So what we mean here by execution of sales, as I move to RE and class of business, what we mean here is that execution of sales, it's a type of intermediary service where the representative does not give advice, but they only render a special type of intermediary service where they implement the instructions of the client without necessarily giving advice. So the best or the closest we can get to these execution of sales will be people who are in a call center setting. They're a typical example of execution of sales. Those guys are exempted from the qualification requirement. And please take note, it's only in tier 1. Then we move to RE and class of business. RE and class of business. In terms of RE and class of business, once again, reps, KIs, and FSPs must do RE and class of business in all categories. But we do have an exemption for KIs, for representatives, and for FSPs who are in long-term insurance A and friendly societies in Cat 1. Then, interestingly, the exemption for reps sort of gets expanded from the qualification exemption. So the guys who are doing execution of sales are also exempted from class of business. They are also exempted from the RE requirement. But we add also our friends in financial services in tier 2. You may recall that tier 2 is made up of 7 subcategories, which are namely your long-term insurance A, your long-term insurance B2A, your long-term insurance B1A, your personal lines A1, your friendly societies, and your 2 deposits, your short-term and long-term deposits. Those guys are not required to do class of business and RE. So I always want to emphasize, guys, that the class of business, actually, both for the qualifications and for the RE and class of business, maybe that's not both because that's 3. But if you look at the 2 categories that I've just mentioned, the exemption for people in execution of sales, it's only on reps. So if I ask you a question, which I want to ask now, and you must answer, and you must check whether you've got the right answer after I give the answer. True or false, is a KI who is doing execution of sales exempted from RE, class of business, and qualification? I know some of you have said yes, but I hope that most of you have said no, they are not exempted. The exemption for execution of sales is only applicable to representatives. Okay? It's only applicable to those who are in exemption, is only applicable to representatives. So your guys who are KIs in execution of sales must have a qualification, must have RE, must do class of business. All right. I hope that is clear. Now, let's talk about product-specific training. Product-specific training is an interesting one because it applies more in Cat 1 and Cat 4. It's more of a requirement in Cat 1 or Cat 4. So But it's important also to note that it applies to our reps and our FSPs only. Any key individual in all categories is not required to do product-specific training. So all your KIs, together with the reps and the FSPs in Cut 2, 2A, or 3. So your Cut 2, 2A, or 3, they are not supposed to do product-specific training. Now, let me address another issue that I feel I need to bring to your attention. You find at times you've got KIs who are also reps. You've got KIs who are also reps. Should they do product-specific training? My answer will be in two parts, yes and no. Yes, for their role as a rep, and no for their role as a key individual. So you can actually do product-specific training if you're a KI that is also a rep. But if your role is only a KI, you are not required to do product-specific training. So a simple way of determining this, if I was a KI, I would go on my rep register, I check who is appearing as a KI and who is appearing as a rep. Everybody who appears as a rep on the rep register and are appointed as a rep, they must do product-specific training. You may also be aware, guys, that there are a number of people where you are, I mean, our friends who are in long-term A and in friendly societies, they're exempted from a number of things. Or maybe your tier 2 also is exempted from a number of things. But when it comes to product-specific training, those guys who are normally exempted are actually not exempted. So your product-specific training is actually applicable to the guys who are doing long-term A and friendly societies, and all your reps in Cut 1 and in Cut 4. But our friends in in Cut 2, 2A, and 3 are not actually supposed to do product-specific training. All right. Okay. So, guys, I hope so far you are following me. So I'm just going to stop my share and maybe just allow a bit of questions and engagement, and then we can then just proceed with our conversation. So can I see if maybe there are a few questions? Then I will be able to attend to the questions. You can also post your questions on the chat, and then I'll be able to do that. All right, I'm just giving it a few moments to see if you guys will post any questions, and then we can then have a short chat. Yes, Famanda, can you just type your question? Maybe I can add you to the stage, and then you can just maybe ask the question. Okay. All right. Okay, any questions, guys? All right, I'm just having a technological moment here. I just need to fix it. All right, any questions, guys? I see maybe there are no questions. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to move to the conversation, back into our conversation, and then we can, yes, we can go back into our conversation. Sorry, I need questions. I'm not able to repeat anything. I just need, if you've got any question, then I'll be able to deal with those questions before I move to the maybe next part that I need to talk to. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to move to the other part now, where I discuss your minimum entry requirements. I'm going to move to the part where I'll discuss minimum entry requirements. So I'll just quickly share again my screen. All right. So let's talk again on these things here. All right, so let's talk on these things. I see I got a response there from Gideon that I think so far he's following it nicely. So what I've also done here is that I've got a list of minimum entry requirements. So you may be aware of these ones, but I just thought I must compress it nicely here. Your minimum entry requirements here, they apply to your different categories when people are being appointed under supervision. So when you appoint reps under supervision, these requirements will actually apply. So let's talk about these requirements. So I'm showing you these requirements. So these requirements, they will apply differently to different categories, as you may be aware of. So for example, in Cat 1, you need a matric or equivalent. Please don't ask me what is the equivalent of matric, but the requirement for you to work under supervision in Cat 1, you must have at least matric or equivalent. Normally, an equivalent might be an NCLEX 4. Then in Cat 2, you need a recognized qualification at a degree level. You need a recognized qualification at a degree level. The same with Cat 2A and 3. So there you cannot join those categories without a recognized qualification. You must possess a recognized qualification. You must possess a recognized qualification in those categories. You must have a recognized qualification. So there's no matric, there's no ABET or whatever. You must have a recognized qualification. I've always overemphasized, guys, that when you want to do Cat 2, 2A, or 3, you must know that the requirements are actually more and more stringent. They are more and more stringent because there is higher risk. The products are more complex. And by virtue of that, when you join these categories, you must have a recognized qualification. Then Cat 4, you need matric or equivalent. So Cat 4 and Cat 1, generally, they are treated or they look the same. The requirements are generally the same. Okay, generally speaking, the requirements are the same for Cat 1 and for Cat 4. Then, if you are doing execution of cells, you only need grade 10 or equivalent. Please don't ask me what is the equivalent of grade 10, but you are only required to have grade 10 or equivalent. Then if you are in long-term A and friendly societies, you only need ABET. You only need ABET. You should be able to read and write and count. Here and there I've seen in practice, but please don't use this in the exam. I've seen at times they request a matric certificate. Maybe that's the only way they can prove that this person can read and write, but it's not even a requirement. You just need to be able to read and write and count. Then where you are working now, let's move now to people who are working under supervision in terms of the timeframes that apply to them and within how long a time are they supposed to meet the requirements they are exempted from. Remember, when a person is working under supervision, they are exempted from 4 things and not 3 elements. They are exempted, and not 5 elements. They are exempted from class of business, RE, qualification, and CPD. So by virtue of what I've just said, it also then tells you that when a person is working under supervision, they are actually not exempted from the product-specific training, because before rendering financial services, they are actually required to do it, irrespective of the fact that they are working under supervision. So you can't say because somebody is working under supervision, therefore they should not do product-specific training. There is no exemption like that. So any rep who is appointed, whether under supervision or whether they are competent, they must do product-specific training. But in terms of class of business training, they will have up to 12 months to do product-specific, class of business, and then RE, they have within 2 years, and they also have within 6 years to do their qualification. And then CPD is a requirement only after completing RE, qualification, and COB, or after 6 years, whichever occurs first. So this, what we mean here, when do we count the 12 months, the 2 years, the 6 years? We count it from the date of first appointment, which is the date on which a rep was first appointed or a KI was first appointed as a KI or as a rep by any organization. And it's only one date. So it means the date, not the date you joined the financial services sector, but the date on which you were first appointed as a rep or as a key individual. That's your DOFA. That's where you count your DOFA from. All right. So, guys, this is the compression that I wanted to share with you this evening. And I'm very aware that it's supposed to help you. It's supposed to guide you when you are going to be making decisions in the exam and maybe partly also in real practice. But as usual, I always say, what we are presenting here cannot be used for commercial purposes. It's purely for academic purposes. And we discharge ourselves of any liability that may arise from this presentation. So I'm going to end here, but I'm also going to allow those who are in the studio to then just chat with me, and then we can address any questions that may actually arise. All right. So yeah, let me then chat to you shortly if need be.